Welcome to Porch Play Chat, sponsored by the American Association for Promoting the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately titled IPA-USA. IPA-USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association, which is comprised of 23 countries, all focused on advocating for the child's right to play. As part of our advocacy efforts in the USA, we've introduced Porch Play Chats, which are conversations with people who are just as passionate about play as we are on a wide variety of topics. And so to learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at IPAUSA.org. And up in that very top right-hand corner, you can subscribe to our Facebook page. You can be a friend on our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And then every Monday, magically, you have a new Porch Play Chat that appears in your inbox. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm the president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch today is Wendy Ruiz. And Wendy has her master's degree from La Verne in child development and child life. She is a certified trainer in PITC and RI, which is resources for infant educators. Is that right, Wendy?
Educators.
Educators, thank you. Yeah. And she's early childhood faculty at the College of the Canyons and the director of early childhood programs for the Maker Learning Network.
That's it.
So what Wendy is going to talk to us about today, because she has a wealth of knowledge about a variety of topics, is it's okay to take your shoes off.
Yes, it is.
I think that's really hard.
It is hard.
Some people. Yeah. What? I take my shoes off, just FYI for the audience. I take my shoes off in my college classroom. My shoes are the first thing that goes off. And my students who don't know me look at me like I've lost my mind. They say, your shoes are off. Yeah, my shoes are off. And they'll say, aren't your feet cold? No, they're not. And they have all these, they're so concerned because my shoes are off. Now later, when they've had me for a couple more semesters, I'll go, I've lost my shoes. Does anybody see my shoes? And they'll help me find them.
I lose my shoes often too at the center.
Absolutely.
Like what classroom did I leave them in?
And when I was teaching, I did the very same thing. My shoes came off, kids' shoes came off. So I think this is, for you and I think this is normal. But I think for other people, they're like.
Yeah, I think anytime I teach a class or even when we do parent tours, especially either one, they're always like, what do you mean you can take they can take their shoes off, and so I always put it back on them. I say, what's the first thing you do when you get home? You take off your shoes, and this is their home. So this isn't their home away from home. So of course our children should be able to take off their shoes. It's what they want to do. Otherwise we're spending, and when I talk to other teachers, they're like, oh my gosh, I struggle all day telling them you have to keep your shoes on, keep your shoes on, keep your shoes on. And some people say, oh, well, it's a licensing thing, or, oh, and I'm like, where? Show me in licensing where it says you have to have your shoes on. Like, I haven't found it yet. And I've been doing this for, 20 something years. So yes, we have to keep them safe. And so we do keep their shoes close by. So in case we have to evacuate, or, that's usually the biggest thing is, what if we have an earthquake? I'm like, so we're going to miss out on all these experiences because of the chance that we might have an earthquake at that moment when their shoes are off. And of course, now I'm going to jinx it, right? But
right. Yes.
But if you watch the children, if you watch the learners, the teachers who have their shoes off, it's such a different experience. And you can tell they're comfortable in their space. You can tell that they're just getting really involved, and of course I provide articles and information on the benefits of what they get through their feet, right? There's so many senses, and that connects to their brain, and just there's just so much good stuff going on with their feet. And whether they're walking in paint or mud or sand or whatever the case, there's so many great sensory experiences coming from it, and so many connections going on.
Just think about when you go to the shore, or when you're wanting to dip your fingers in a pond, or you take your shoes off because of the sensory experiences that you're able to have. So I love it. What is the first thing you do when you walk in the door? I kick off my shoes. Everybody kicks
Absolutely.
off their shoes. You don't want to track in what's outside, inside. And it's
Absolutely. It's totally the first thing I do.
me.
Always.
Oh, absolutely. I
And
hate
it's
shoes.
and our we call them learners, but they, as soon as they enter, they just know. And even if they don't know, even if they're new, they still. And we have a few like practicum students that kind of like look around and they'll, why are their shoes off? And I say, why not? You tell us why not. Let's have that discussion. And then it's always, their answer is always, yeah, they're more comfortable with their shoes off. It's just I think the biggest challenge, of course, at the end of the night is sometimes finding them, you know. But most of the parents are so used to it now. If they do have shoes on, they're covered in mud.
Mhm.
So they leave in a baggie because they're covered in mud and they don't want those in the car. And I say 9 times out of 10, our children are leaving without their shoes on. So they come with shoes, but then they leave without. Or sometimes our parents just forgo their shoes altogether and just send them separately because they're like, we know they're just going to take them off. So here you go.
And so how I think, people would go, what do you mean they're covered in paint when they go home? My parents would be screaming at me nonstop. How do we get parents to the point to where they're
Yeah.
excited when their child comes home covered in red paint or
Yeah.
not
Mud.
with no shoes on? How do we do that? Because
So
I
it's
think
it's a
that's a very,
process. It's
yes. So
definitely a process. And kind of the first thing we do is we use an app called Bright Wheel, and so we send pictures throughout the day of their child, and then we try to send photos showing how engaged and how happy they are in those experiences, because it's one thing to give them an article. They might read it, they might take it in, but to see your own child with that joy on their face, it's hard to deny. It's
Mhm.
really hard to say, I'm going to take that away. No one wants to take that away from their child, right? So once they see it and see what we're trying to explain, it kind of lessens it a little bit, And so we do tell them, send them in clothes that don't, that you get at a garage sale or whatever. And we do have some families who maybe they can't afford to keep going through clothes, right? So we'll use the same outfit. We're like, just let us keep this outfit. We'll put this outfit on them again before we're going to go do sensory play. And then we'll take it off and put their other clothes back on, or we'll do what we can to kind of support them. We do have some families that say, oh, we're going to go to dinner after this. And, okay, no problem. We'll hose them down before we send them out.
Right,
So we do definitely take both sides into consideration. Some of our learners don't want to do all the sensory and that's okay too. We have some other activities that aren't as hands-on. Doesn't mean they want to keep their shoes on anymore, though. They still want to take their shoes off, but maybe they don't want to cover themselves in red or whatever. I don't know what the activity was yesterday. I have to go check, but I went out on the yard and every child was just red, head to toe, just red, and they were as happy as they could be. They were just laughing, and oh my gosh, it was so sweet. And as the parents picked up, because they come in the lobby, I was warning them, your child's a little red today, just before you go see them, just a heads up.
Just a heads up, they're a little red.
They're a
You're
little
going to
red, they
see a
might need
lot
a
of
bath.
red.
They
Yeah.
might need a bath. We had one child who, unfortunately, during the day, he did bump his head and he needed to go to get to a doctor to get it checked out. And he was all red. And the doctor was like, what happened? It's not, he's not bleeding. It's not, just happens to be, he was playing. And he's alive. So it washed right off. She said when they went to wash his hands in the sink, the water was just all red. And I don't know what the learners were doing, but they were engaged and they were excited. And to them, it's just who they are. The more mud, the more dirt, the better for them. But it is a process, and it's a process. I think our biggest challenge is helping families to see that there is learning in all of that. Right? We don't just they're not just playing in mud, but what are they doing when they're playing in the mud, and what are the connections?
So I think what you've already given, there are tons of great strategies. So take pictures. People love to see pictures of their children, right? So if you have one of those apps, it's great. There's Cambu, there's Bright Wheel, there's Tadpole in their Tadpole.
There's several.
Those are so worth it, right? For families to be able to engage and to see their children playing happily. And then the other thing I think that I really loved is that, if a parent comes to you and says, so we're going out to dinner, As soon as then you make sure that the child is cleaner
Cleaner, yes.
than they may have otherwise been. But I really like the piece. And I always go back to Bev Boz, and what she would do at her parent orientations is go to Goodwill or a secondhand store, send in buy 5 cheap outfits, don't spend more than $10, and send your child in one of those every day and send an extra set so that we can change them if we need to, right? And then if you have families who can't do that, then there are other families, I'm sure, who would donate clothes, right?
We have plenty of extra clothes.
Yeah. So I remember in my center, we had, parents would say, "What I have all these clothes and they've outgrown them." And I'd say, "Great, we'll take them."
Yeah.
And so we had not only a toy swap closet for everyone as their children got older, and people would bring in toys. I have toys for the toy swap. And I said, "Awesome." And we also had a clothing swap, so they could, and they didn't even have to bring anything in, they could just get it. So, I think those strategies are really helpful, and it makes parents think they're contributing to the program in other children's lives.
Yeah.
But it also gives parents an opportunity to not have to have an outlay of expense.
Right.
When they can just know that you're there, that the safety net is there for them, right?
We're not here to add challenges to their day. We're not here to make anything harder for them. We're here to provide an outlet that maybe the child doesn't get at home, right? Maybe they're not able to be the sensory, and that's okay because they can do it here, right? So we're just trying to create a safe space for them where they want to be, where they need to be while their parents are at work, but they can get out that whatever they need to. I mean, even our school agers, they go to school in the morning or the day, they come to us after school. Oh, you better believe they're playing in the mud. Like, they don't grow out of this, and they're taking their shoes off as soon as they get here. Like,
so the other big learning for me, though, is that they're doing it because maybe they haven't had the opportunity to do it. And they're doing it because it's internally driven to do, right? This is a normal part of childhood.
Yes.
That sometimes that your program offers the outlet that sometimes parents may not feel comfortable with. And that in itself is a gift to families.
Absolutely. Yeah. They do say, like, it's better for them to paint here than in my kitchen, or, we don't have a backyard, we have a patio, so there's no mud or sensory, or, so we're glad they could come here and get that out. And, and that's what we're just, our goal is just to allow them just to be who they want to be. Like you said, internally, it's not, they're bringing these ideas to us. They're coming to us. They're saying, "I want to take my shoes off. I want to take my shirt off. I want to take my," a lot of them just, and that's just how they're comfortable. That's just, and then, like you said, are people, your students ask if your feet get cold. If they were cold, they would tell us, or if the ground is too hot, of course, if the ground is too hot, we're going to check it. We always go outside and we'll check it first to make sure it's not going to be too hot or too cold, which, we're in Southern California, so we don't really get either, except for maybe too hot. But then if it's too hot, we're doing water play. So the ground is soaked, is wet. And so, I mean, it's the children, we have to trust them. They're capable and competent to tell us how they're feeling. And it's natural and logical consequences, right? If they're too hot or too cold, they're going to come and tell us, and they can fix it. So they can we have some learners who want to wear their swimsuit all day. Okay. And they go in their cubby and they take it and they put it on. We have some who, want to keep their shoes on, and that's fine too. We just tell the parent, maybe send a couple extra shoes because we don't know what's going to happen to those shoes. So, or send some water shoes or something that aren't, and so we really try to accommodate as much as we can. Our biggest challenge, I think, is when a family might say, please make sure they keep their shoes on. We don't want them to get messy. And so then we do have to have hard conversations with them about, maybe this isn't the right program for you. We'll do everything we can, but we can't ask your child to not be who they are. So we can't tell them, I'm sorry, you can't play with this, or you can't, if you're going to bring your child here, we're hoping that they can engage in whatever they choose to engage in. And so that's a hard conversation sometimes.
Well, but I think it's a necessary conversation. I mean, I remember even as a director of an early care and education program, we were very play-based. And parents would say, oh, I don't want them to get dirty. And
Yeah.
I'd say, then this may not be the right place, right?
Yeah.
It could be that this is just not the right fit because I'm going to walk you through and let you see what we do. And
Mhm.
then you can decide. But I'll tell you, I have testimonials from parents who felt exactly the same way you did,
Yes.
who recognized that their child needed a place to be able to do this
Hmm.
because it may not be possible in your home or it may not be possible in your neighborhood. And then, in that conversation, I would say, tell me about where you played as a child. And they would give me all these amazing, rich experiences.
Right.
And I would say, so doesn't your child deserve the same thing? And that would make them stop. And yeah, I guess they do. And I'd say this is the place where that can happen. And so that conversation,
Love that.
even though it was a hard conversation, and you're like, do I take a risk? I need this tuition, right?
Right.
But it goes back to your values and your principles and what you believe in
Yeah.
and how you have to advocate for the children
It's always
about those
children
values.
first.
It
Always.
is.
Our whole program is always children first. Any decision we make is with the children first in mind. And that's a struggle even for some of our teachers, because maybe some of our facilitators are not comfortable with that type of philosophy or allowing them to. And it's not, if you're not comfortable taking your shoes off, you don't have to. It's not a requirement.
No,
You don't have to jump in the mud. That's not required, but you can't put that onto them. So
right.
if just because it's not comfortable for you yet, doesn't mean it's not comfortable for them. And same
Mhm.
thing with our parents, so we try to, like, we have parents who later on will say, I had no idea. I know it wasn't right for me, but it's definitely right for my child. And I'm so glad I stuck with it, or we're so glad we kept them here, or this was definitely what they needed. We've had a few families who came from other programs who were very different than us. They came for whatever need, location or whatever they transferred over. And they said, wow, it's just like night and day. Their child comes home just a totally different child. They're so much happier. They're sleeping better. They're talking more. They're just a totally different child. And they said, we had no idea that it was, we're like, we're not doing anything different. We're not doing it. Like, we're just allowing them to be who they are.
Well, and I think that with the increase, I mean, think about all the prescriptions that we're giving to children for anxiety medication right now that's driving me crazy when all we need to do is let them play, right?
Yeah.
Because I think there's so many unrealistic expectations and so many developmentally inappropriate expectations for where that child is developmentally, forget where they are chronologically, at this
Right.
point. We really have to be focused on meeting children where they are and providing space for them to do the things that they need to be doing. And if for some horrible reason they, through neglect or trauma or something, they didn't quite get those learning connections when they might have on a typical milestone chart,
Yeah.
then it's our job to help shore up what they missed by giving them those experiences.
Yeah.
So, sometimes, and, this has been sort of a pattern in this week's Porch Play Chats, which I find fascinating. There's always some theme. And one of the big ahas that I had this morning is that based on, we were talking about play through the lifespan, right? And we were talking about how risk averse as a society we've become. And one of my big ahas this morning was, I climbed trees, I jumped off fences, I lived on 5 acres of,
Wow.
and that was my playground. And so the risky things that I did that people might think are awful, and why would your mom let you climb those trees, or whatever. The risky things that I did, I made those learning connections stronger and stronger, those synaptic connections in my brain stronger and stronger, so that now as an older adult, I can assess risk and determine whether or not I should do that or not.
Nice.
And I think that happened because of my childhood.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And so if we don't allow children to challenge themselves physically, emotionally,
Mhm.
intellectually, then I think we're robbing them of that long-term learning connection that will carry through their lifespan and help them assess whether or not they're going to jump off that wall when they're
100%.
or not. So again, these are the not allowing children to do that has
Right.
lifelong consequences, just like it does for their ability to learn and their learning potential and their ability to reach that potential. So I really think we have to maybe reframe that it's not just important that children have child-initiated play and can authentically express who they are in this play,
Right. They have
but
to take risks.
you have to take risks,
Mhm.
because if you don't, and you're in a risk-averse childhood, you might try to take a risk that is more dangerous
Right.
later
Because they
because you
don't
haven't
trust
learned.
themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, they
And
have to learn to trust themselves, and that how many cubes can, like we use milk crates, how many milk crates can I climb up before like I might come tumbling down, or and of course we have facilitators around there to make sure that they're okay, but we do need to let them see how many more steps can I take, or how high can I build that tower before it falls over, or it's you have to balance the risk versus the reward. We're not allowing a child to climb over, run across the street and climb over, it's the risk versus reward. Like, what's going to happen? Okay, they're going to fall onto the grass, or they're going to, we do have some stub toes. I'll admit it. We have one today. We have some, we have a child who she kind of stepped on a stick. And so she had, we had to help her with that. But even so, the parent still was like, I know she's not going to keep her shoes on. So, that's just part of what happens. And the parent of the stub toe, he's like, yep, that happens. Tape it up, send him back out, like it's that, risk.
and again, right. And she's learned a natural consequence, right?
Right.
Right. So I need to watch more closely where I'm going.
Yeah.
But we didn't say that. She's learning. It's an internal thing that
right.
is
If
like,
I don't want
oh,
to
I
stub
don't
my
like
toe
it.
next time.
Right.
Like, I think he actually kicked like a cement block or something that was holding the easy up. And so, okay, well then, watch where you're, you need to kind of watch where you're kicking. But, and yeah, if he had his shoes on, he probably wouldn't have stubbed his toe. True. So, but he has a choice. He could put his shoes back on. Right. He chose not to. He's like, no, I'm just going to tape it up and go run back out. He was 3. He's like, I got, and okay, your shoes are right here if you want them. And so it's a trial and error. It's seeing what works for that learner. Everyone is different. Some are definitely not in that comfortable sensory space where they want to keep their shoes on. They want to stay all covered up. They're just not in that comfortable, but you can see the child they start to peel. It's like layers of, they start to peel it off and they just start to open up more. So I think it's all connected.
Sometimes they're sit and watchers, right? So
absolutely,
they have to see. I'm going to just sit and watch what happens when they go run into the mud puddle. And am I ready to try that? Maybe not today, but
maybe not yet.
Maybe it's just not yet, right? So, but at least they have the experience and they can sit and watch,
right?
And they can learn from that just as much. And so it's the opportunities. We shouldn't ever force a child to do anything, right? But it's providing the space and opportunities so that they can incrementally start to feel comfortable and sort of test the waters a little bit.
Yeah. It goes yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
It reminds me, and this is a whole nother porch play chat. This will probably be my next one, is allowing them to climb up the slide. That's like, I could do a whole hours on that one. We have whole discussions in class on that one. It's the same kind of thing. It's allowing them to take that risk and going against the grain, but it's supporting what's going on in their head, their agenda. They have amazing ideas. We just need to step back and Like, just let them happen.
You know, one of the things that I say all the time is that when I'm working with my college students, I said, you know, you have in your head, you wake up every morning and you have, I have to do this, 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 this. Children don't have that.
Right.
And so they may have a plan as they get into their 3.5, 4.5-year-olds. I want to go do this in blocks tomorrow.
Right.
But that's their plan, right? And so we have to slow down. You know, Ron Grady on Monday Speaker Series talked about it's your daily rhythm. It's not a routine. It's not a schedule. It's a rhythm, because even in that daily rhythm, you're meeting what children need is that consistency of what comes next so that they feel safe, right? But the time frames around that daily rhythm are ebb and flow with where children are. You know, he was talking about them, what they do when they first arrive in the forest. You know, they put all their lunch pails and sack pails in the wagon, and then they play, right? And he said, and sometimes that's 15 minutes before they're ready to move on, and sometimes it's 45. And when they're ready, then we move into the next segment of the daily rhythm. And it was a beautiful lesson in not having your agenda interfere with where children are in that moment. And if you could just slow down and listen to them, and you would really hear some amazing things that they're figuring out on their own if we could just listen, right, and slow down.
Oh, absolutely.
So, you know, I think I like the next Porch Play Chat, so I'm going to hold you to that one.
Okay, I'm doing it.
Because I think it's important that we continue to build these Porch Play Chats around practical strategies that people can do, which you've given us today on taking your shoes off.
It's okay.
But yet being flexible with kids who may be too sensory averse to doing that with their feet, since there's so many nerves in the feet. But having the flexibility that says, sure, you can keep your shoes on, but definitely you can take them off. It's absolutely fine. And helping parents feel comfortable with that. I think that's the
first step.
It really is. For the whole approach of play.
Yes.
And allowing children to experiment and do what they feel comfortable doing all the time. So of course, Wendy, always, as always, you're amazing.
Oh, you're amazing.
We can just talk like this forever.
Oh my gosh, this could go on and on. This is wonderful.
So to learn more about Porch Play Chats, make sure you visit IPA-USA.org. And until next time, keep on playing.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you